champions.
Welcome to baseball seasons 2000. Subway Series renewed.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
A pop in the shadow left.
Yankees win. The Yankees win. The New York Yankees, for the 25th time, have once again reached the pinnacle of the sports world.
Most successful franchise of the century.
And as a new millennium dawned, the New York Yankees remain packed with stars and eager to maintain their supremacy over the game of baseball.
The Yankees entered the 2000 season as the two-time defending World Series champion and expected to win a third straight championship.
It was a ball club of great stars who typified what it was like to go out and bring a legacy to the organization and to yourselves by playing together.
Coming back to spring training every year as a World Series champion, the mindset wasn't let's go out and have another good year and hope things work out. It was let's get to another World Series, and when we get to another World Series, let's win it.
But the Yanks would first need to spend the regular season grappling with longtime rival Boston. And led by star shortstop Nomar Garciaparra and reigning Cy Young winner Pedro Martinez, the Red Sox were aiming to overcome their New York nemesis in the American League East. The New York Mets also knew something about playing second fiddle. For years, they had not only shared a city with the Yanks, but a division with the perennially dominant Atlanta Braves.
Braves are right at home in October. They've qualified for the playoffs every season since '91.
They were the Yankees of the National League. It was awfully tough to get through Smoltz, Maddox, and Glavine. It was a pain in the neck, no question about it. So being in the East, you knew you had to run through there.
But in 2000, the Braves would have to pitch shorthanded. John Smoltz's elbow problems from the previous year had required off-season surgery that would keep him shelved the entire year. Meanwhile, Atlanta's familiar division nemesis Bobby Valentine's Mets were getting stronger. Led by all-star catcher Mike Piazza, New York had won 97 games in 1999 and then made a huge addition to their pitching staff.
Mike Hampton came off a great season coming from Houston, a 20-game winner. We had a legitimate ace.
I was excited about maybe being an extra piece of that puzzle to get to a World Series.
Here come the Mets in Tokyo.
Hampton would begin his Mets career in unique fashion, an opening day start in Tokyo against the Cubs. The first regular season game ever to be played outside North America.
Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa.
Genki desu.
It was a great experience. A lot of guys have never been there before, but Bobby Valentine had managed there, and Bobby was like a god there.
少しダメですけど、日本に帰ってこられて、とても感動していますね。
A wild Hampton would drop the historic Far East opener. But in the second game of the series, Benny Agbayani salvaged a split for the Mets with a memorable extra inning blast.
Grand slam home run by Benny Agbayani.
That was a big home run for us. We didn't want to travel all the way to Japan and come back 0-2.
The Mets would soon return to the familiar confines of Shea Stadium. Three other teams, though, began 2000 in new homes. The trend of new ballparks opening throughout the game had begun in the early 90s, and in 2000, iconic Tiger Stadium in Detroit was replaced by spacious Comerica Park. And the new park in Houston showcased Towles Hill, a 90-foot wide incline that provided a distinctive dimension deep in center field.
The nooks and crannies of a ballpark can bring excitement to a game. I think each ballpark has got to develop its own characteristics.
In the city by the bay, a striking waterfront setting made the San Francisco Giants' new home the game's nicest new venue in the eyes of many.
You cross the threshold into heaven, and you go into Packville Park, it was overwhelming.
If the new park made Giants tickets a hot commodity in San Francisco, its tempting measurements proved at first to be confounding for the home team.
People came into that ballpark and immediately looked out to right field where it was 309 feet to the foul pole.
They saw a short porch there in right field. Everybody thought it was going to be a hitter's ballpark, especially for left-handed hitters.
Everybody said it's going to be a bandbox, and after the first game, you know what? They're right.
The sixth home run in the game today.
But the thing we learned about Pac Bell Park was that it was all about the wind. When the wind was blowing, balls would get knocked down.
Bonds has twice hit long fly balls and got nothing for it.
The Giants were an offensive team. Dusty Baker was really concerned that this park was going to play against the Giants' strengths.
They lost their first 5 home games in this ballpark. And I remember one of us said, you know what, we need to go back to Candlestick.
As a new millennium dawned in baseball, there was little debate over who was the face of the game.
The youngest all-century player, Ken Griffey Jr.
Goodbye, baseball! Holy smoke! It's high in the air, and he's got it! An incredible catch by the kid!
That's why we call him the kid, because he could take a major league adult moment and make you think you're playing Little League ball.
Ken Griffey had spent an unforgettable decade in Seattle. But at age 30, he now wanted to play closer to his family on the East Coast. And so, with a year left on his contract, the Mariners traded him to his hometown team, the Cincinnati Reds.
February 10th, 2000. That day will go down in Reds history when the Michael Jordan of baseball came home to Cincinnati.
Griffey was now with the franchise's father had played for as a member of the Big Red Machine in the 70s, and a team that had lost a one-game playoff for the NL wildcard a year earlier. Expectations were high.
Well, I'm finally home.
We thought playing in front of his hometown would motivate him even more. So we were actually looking for the results and the success he had in Seattle, plus some.
Every night we go to watch Junior and see the highlights he's doing in Seattle. Now we get to watch front row.
I thought that he and I, both being from Cincinnati, were going to be a unstoppable force.
Back in Seattle, all hope was not lost. Even with their franchise player gone, the Mariners plan to contend for the division title.
When you lose a junior, people think, well, how is this club going to respond?
We didn't really think about, Griffey not being there.
Cameron goes back to the track, makes the catch.
Mike Cameron came in, played center field, and he said, hey, I'm a center fielder. I'm not replacing him. I'm just playing center field.
Mike Cameron wins it in the bottom of the 19th inning.
Along with Cameron, the Mariners brought in first baseman John Olerud and future Hall of Famer Rickey Henderson. They joined Seattle's remaining superstars, Alex Rodriguez and Edgar Martinez, to lead a formidable lineup that would keep Seattle in the playoff hunt.
We had an experienced bunch, and at the same time, a very talented bunch of players. I really like that group.
This is something to see this franchise reacting without Griffey.
But all season long, an upstart opponent would keep pace in the AL West. For years, the A's had been grooming offensive talent like Jason Giambi and Miguel Tejada. And in 2000, that talent hit full throttle.
It was a loose group of guys, and they were a self-confident bunch. I don't think there was a whole lot of fear.
Jason Giambi had a shirt that said, party like rock stars, play like all-stars, and I can't really repeat what the third phrase said. We had so many good young players, and it was a very exciting time. We knew we were about to do something good.
You could see the players start to gel with each day and each win and each game.
Back to back to back. 3 consecutive home runs.
The A's would rank second in the AL in home runs in 2000 and third in runs scored, an offensive formula for winning games that had been used for years in Cleveland by the Indians.
Cleveland was a great template as to way to get in the playoffs, score so many runs.
With a fearsome lineup that included the likes of All-Stars Manny Ramirez and Jim Thome, the Indians entered 2000 as five-time defending AL Central champions. But in Chicago, the White Sox had a new storyline in mind.
We had three young hitters that were entering the prime of their careers. Magglio Ordonez and Paul Konerko.
You can put it on the board! Yeah!
And alongside those youngsters was a rejuvenated future Hall of Famer, eager to turn in a comeback campaign.
I was going through a divorce with three little kids. My focus at times were off. 2000 was 2 years past it. Everything was fine. I was back being myself again.
This is the big hurt. Mr. Thomas. Hello.
There's a shot, Benson.
Following the lead of their revitalized star, the White Sox won an AL Best 17 games in April.
The White Sox have swept the Indians for the first time here at Jacobs Field.
White Sox sweeping the Yankees here at Yankee Stadium in this four-game series.
That year was a special year because no one saw it coming. We shocked the world that year with that team.
Can you believe it?
Throughout the 2000 season, big bats flourished as a dominant presence throughout the game of baseball.
The 2000 season was the apex of the great hitting era in baseball. That year, the average number of runs scored per game was the highest since the 1930s.
And amidst all that offense in 2000, batsmen throughout the league put up remarkable individual numbers.
Another multi-hit game for Darren.
But in a huge season for hitters, a select group of pitchers earned headlines of their own, including the Cardinals' 20-year-old rookie phenom, Rick Ankiel.
Rick was a special talent. His mechanics were so smooth and so fluid, and the next thing you know, the ball was past you.
Got him. There's another strikeout for Rick Ankiel. He is just mowing them down.
Definitely the best left-handed curveball I ever caught. I could almost hear the seams zipping in as he threw that curveball.
Big breaking ball and got him.
He looked like he had it all, and he went through that first half of the season just dealing.
You're looking at a young guy, and you said, wow, here's one of the young great pitchers that is going to come along in this game.
When it came to Pedro Martinez, the conversations weren't about the future, but already about his place in baseball's all-time list of pitching greats.
Pedro Martinez comes along in the greatest hitting season of its time and holds opposing hitters to a batting average of 167.
Complete dominance.
People only went to the concession stands when the Red Sox were at bat because you didn't ever want to miss a moment of Pedro Martinez.
It is the greatest season in the history of the game. Pedro in 2000.
He makes some very good hitters look awkward.
Pedro was in top form in 2000 on an evening when the lights shined brightest. A Sunday night matchup in May against Roger Clemens and the Yankees in New York.
Oh, man.
Struck him out on a high fastball.
Pedro was just shutting people down. I mean, he was just absolutely blowing people away. And I can remember one time looking over at Tino and kind of jokingly said, hey, you know, at least I fouled one off.
Both pitchers threw shutout ball for 8 innings. But then, Trot Nixon blasted a 2-run homer off Clemens in the 9th, leaving Pedro to finish off the gem.
The Red Sox and Pedro Martinez have beaten the New York Yankees 2-0.
The win gave the Sox a 1-game lead atop the AL East, but their stay in first would be brief as the Yankees, bolstered by a midseason deal to get slugger David Justice, soon reclaimed control of the division.
They were great before I got here, so I just wanted to come in and just keep them afloat. Don't mess with the chemistry and help our team win.
A week after obtaining Justice, the Yankees faced their crosstown rivals, the Mets. Thanks to regular season interleague play, the Subway Series had become a new tradition. And in 2000, the Mets intended to gain summer Big Apple bragging rights over the defending champions.
You look across to the Bronx, and there was some absolute envy as to the success that they had. So there was definitely that big brother, little brother scenario.
Because of a rainout earlier in the season, the teams would be playing a unique Saturday doubleheader, the opener in Queens and the nightcap in the Bronx. The Yankees grabbed Game 1 at Shea Stadium in the triumphant homecoming of a former Mets star.
Doc Gooden gets the win in his return after 6 years away from Shea Stadium.
Let's now go to the Bronx.
Tonight it's going to be Roger Clemens in Game 2 here at Yankee Stadium.
Mike Piazza will be the designated hitter.
The Mets, especially while the Yankees were winning championships, we needed a legitimate superstar. Mike Piazza was our star. So when Piazza would get up against a guy like Roger, you watched a little closer.
Mike Piazza leads off the second inning. Piazza is 7 for 12 against Clemens with 3 home runs, including a grand slam last month.
Piazza had just owned Roger Clemens, and Roger was open and vocal about it, saying, I got to try something different here.
Mike gets in very casually, taps the plate, kind of gets in there. And
Clemens delivers. It hit him. And Piazza goes down. He's on his back. And Piazza having trouble opening his eyes.
We all in the dugout went crazy because I think as a player, when you see your teammate, who is your leader, go down like that, obviously emotions come into play and you think it was done on purpose.
Oh man, was that scary.
I thought it was definitely intentional. I try to think of Roger Clemens as a great pitcher, but I really can't say I have respect for him right now.
The press loved it, the fans loved it, because it's almost that mentality that the Yankees and the Mets hate each other, and it definitely was talked about the rest of the year.
Let's meet the All-Stars.
On July 11th, 2000, established superstars and rising talents convened at Turner Field in Atlanta for the All-Star Game. And in an echo of the World Series a year earlier, a Yankee stole the spotlight at the home of the Braves.
A line drive, and he's 3 for 3. Peter has knocked in 2 and scored the other.
Derek, on behalf of Major League Baseball, congratulations. And I'm told the first New York Yankee to ever win this award.
You know, All-Star Game is something you never take for granted, because you never know when you get an opportunity to come back. You realize how special it is.
If Derek Jeter was the game's MVP, it was a hometown hero who earned the night's loudest cheers.
From the Atlanta Braves, playing first base, Andres Galarraga.
Andres Galarraga had missed the entire '99 season battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but had rebounded remarkably to return to all-star form en route to a 100 RBI season.
To come back to play baseball, doing what I've been doing so far, I have to enjoy it. The main thing for me right now is helping the team to win.
Propelled by Galarraga, Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones, and a pitching staff maintaining its stellar standard, even without John Smoltz, the Braves captured their 9th straight division title. The Mets may have been unable to overtake the Braves, but with Piazza bouncing back from his mid-season concussion, and Mike Hampton and Al Leiter leading the way on the mound, New York cruised to a second straight wild card.
And the Mets are going back to the playoffs.
We legitimately thought, hey, we have enough players here, and we have shown that we can get to a World Series.
In the NL Central, Ken Griffey Jr. reached a milestone in his first season with the Reds.
The youngest man in the history of Major League Baseball to reach 400 home runs.
But Jr. ultimately fell short of lofty expectations in his Cincinnati debut, and his team fell short of a division title.
He hit 270, he had 40 home runs, and he had 120 RBIs. And I remember people saying it was an off year.
Rick Ankiel, however, continued to defy all expectations and struck out 8 to earn the win in the Cards' NL Central clincher with more than a week to go in the season.
That's a winner. Champion Cardinals in the Central Division.
I can't explain how exciting it is to be in here right now. It's just awesome. It's kind of overwhelming. Big time.
Pac Bell Park initially may have been a house of horrors for the Giants, but it quickly became a Bay paradise. Led by Barry Bonds and league MVP Jeff Kent, Frisco finished the regular season with the best home record in baseball and cruised to a National League West title.
If you had one thing to say to the fans of the San Francisco Giants, what would you say to them right now? I love you!
In the American League, parts of the playoff picture appeared in focus long before the stretch run. In the Central, the White Sox grabbed the lead in April and never looked back.
It's not over. We still got a long way to go, but it feels good to be popping the champagne right now.
The Yankees again captured the AL East, but it wasn't all pretty, as New York lost 15 of its last 18 games to sputter into the postseason.
Suddenly, this dynastic group seemed a lot more vulnerable.
You know, a lot of people are focusing on what we've done over the last 2 weeks, and they need to focus on what we've done over the course of the season.
Our goal is to win the World Series, so, we're on our way.
Then there were the A's, Indians, and Mariners. 3 teams bidding for the other 2 playoff spots with no room for error in late September.
The 2000 season has turned into a 10-game sprint.
By the season's final day, the Mariners had already gotten in, but the Indians were in need of help, leaving the A's in control of their own fate. One more win would earn them a division title.
I couldn't even watch. I got in my car and drove out and left the ballpark for about 7 innings. And as I was driving towards the stadium, I heard the roar of the crowd.
The 2000 postseason was now set. 8 teams set to battle it out in October for the game's greatest prize.
The Redbirds and the Atlanta Braves welcome to postseason play.
It came as a surprise decision just before the 2000 NLDS. Rookie Rick Ankiel would get the Game 1 start, minus his usual catcher.
The thing that hurt the most was not being there to help Rick through that time.
St. Louis staked Ankiel to a 6-0 lead early, and then in the third, without notice, it all unraveled.
Another wild pitch. 5 wild pitches here in this inning. That is unbelievable.
I took a lot of it personally when he just kept having trouble and couldn't quite get it right.
4 walks and 5 wild pitches led to an early Ankiel exit, though the bullpen held the Braves from there.
6 1/3 innings out of the bullpen, only 1 unearned run.
Going into game 2, we knew that we had Tommy on the mound. Tommy struggled.
That's going to do it for Tom Glavine.
The Cardinals went up 2-0, and we just really struggled to get the momentum turned in our favor in that series.
A swing and a miss, and that's a winner. The St. Louis Cardinals utterly, thoroughly trouncing the Braves 3-0.
The Mariners and Chicago White Sox, the American League Divisional Series.
No team in baseball had scored more runs than the White Sox in the regular season. But in October, the saying goes, good pitching always trumps good hitting.
Popped him up again.
It was very deflating.
I can't believe it.
Maybe we were just putting too much pressure on ourselves at home to start.
But if the Mariners felt any pressure with Game 1 tied in the 10th, they didn't show it.
Line drive, home run, Edgar Martinez, and the Mariners have the lead.
Got very upset about it, didn't really put it away, forget about it, move on to Olerud, and pretty much deposit another one into the seeds.
Goodbye, baseball! Back-to-backers!
With a combination of clutch hitting and solid pitching, the Mariners grabbed the first 2 games in Chicago and returned home for Game 3 with a sweep in mind.
Bottom of the 9th, 1 out. Henderson, the winning run at third. What a spot right here for Carlos Guillen.
Everybody had an idea he may be squeeze bunting. He might do it because that's something that we've done all year long.
And as soon as I kind of see him start to bunt, I'm like, here we go.
Pitch on the way to Carlos. There's a bunt up the first baseman. The Mariners are on their way to the American League Championship.
At that point in time, for a lot of guys, it was their first time going to the LCS, so it was just a tremendous feeling. Some 800 miles south in San Francisco, the team with the best record in the game got off to a smashing start.
Ellis Burks hit a big home run, a 3-run shot that hit the left field foul pole.
A 3-run homer for Burks, and it's 5-1 Giants. And game 1 goes to the Giants.
But behind a late Edgardo Alfonso homer, New York looked to tie the series in Game 2.
Bottom of the ninth, it is the Mets 4 and the Giants 1.
I got a chance to get up there in the bottom of the ninth.
J.T. Snow will bat. Representing a tying run. High fly ball right, hit to the corner.
That night here, the wind blows in from right, and it got held up a little bit, but I got just enough of it.
It's gone! Oh, no, it's gone! Snow has homered, and we are tied!
The problem was when J.T. Snow hit the home run, it didn't win the game, it tied the game.
So on we go to the 10th.
When everyone got back in the dugout, main thing we said was let's don't lose our composure. And I got the opportunity with 2 outs to come up and pinch hit.
Darryl Hamilton, a double to right center field. And the Mets have the lead run at second base with 2 men down.
And Jay Payton came up after me and hit a base hit.
Jay Payton with a line drive single to center to drive home Darryl Hamilton with the lead run.
Soon, 40-year-old John Franco came on to try and save it. And with 2 out and 1 on, a giant challenge strode to the plate.
Barry Bonds standing in against John Franco.
That's probably one of the biggest highlights of my career, striking out Barry Bonds.
On the inside corner, strike 3 call. The ball game is over.
That was a big win for us. And when we got to Shea Stadium, we took care of business there.
2-2, bottom of the 13th. Benny would love to try and win it with one swing right here. High fly ball, deep left field. Back goes Bonds, looking up at the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! The Mets win the ball game!
It's a dream, and I hope nobody wakes me up from it.
Benny Agbayani wins it with a home run for New York, and the Mets take the lead in the series, 2 games to 1.
In Game 4, another unlikely hero rose to the occasion for the Mets.
Bobby Jones goes to the mound for the Mets.
Bobby Jones had gone to manager Bobby Valentine before that game, and he said, today, I'm going to pitch the game of my life.
Jones has faced 12, and he's retired all 12.
It was just one of those special nights for me where I was totally locked in and I made good quality pitches throughout the evening.
Bobby Jones has done it! A one-hit shutout! A masterpiece! And the Mets have defeated the Giants. And they are heading for St. Louis.
One team finished great, the Oakland A's 17-4. One team was terrible, 3-15. That's the New York Yankees.
But as the ALDS started, both the Yanks and A's were feeling confident.
As soon as the playoffs started, you start to believe the other way. Hey, we're here for a reason. We are that good.
An Oakland team that was absolutely brilliant throughout September.
Even though they had a pretty good run at winning World Series, we felt like we were the better team.
And in Game 1, the A's looked the part, beating 5-time Cy Young Award winner Roger Clemens.
A's win the first game.
It was the Yanks' 8th consecutive loss overall. But the next night, New York turned to a familiar and reliable face to stop the bleeding.
Now the pressure is on Andy Pettitte.
He gave the Yankees exactly what they needed, just that calm that Pettitte always seemed to bring to the big stage.
Strike 3, breaking ball, beautiful pitch. The Yankees got exactly what they needed out of their starter.
Shuts down the A's offense for a Yankees victory.
The great shutout pitching of Pettitte and Rivera.
Momentum's on your side again. Here we go again.
Welcome to Game 3. And on the mound is El Duque.
And boasting a postseason mark of 5-0 and a 1.02 ERA, Orlando Hernandez rose high again.
Swung and a miss, he struck him out.
Backed up by some stellar defense.
What a play by Soho, and what a relay by Derek Jeter.
And 6 outs from the game's best closer.
Yankees win. Yankees win.
So everything had lined up that we were going to clinch that at home, but it didn't happen that way.
The Athletics have evened it tonight, scoring 3 on a Signs homer in the first, and then building to a final of 11-1. Most important game of the year. It's all on the line.
Their rout in Game 4 had emboldened the youthful A's, perhaps a bit too enthusiastically.
press conference before the game, some of the guys were, saying that we were done and it was time for another team to step up. And we sort of took that and then had it as our motivation for the game.
They go out and get 6 runs in the top of the first. That's making a statement, to say the least.
So we knew we had our hands full, but I think that the deficit loosened the guys up. We chipped back in.
It's a 2-run game, 7-5.
But the guy waiting at the end of the bullpen was a guy named Rivera.
Zeno makes the catch!
And the New York Yankees march on to the American League Championship Series.
The Yankees had taken another step closer to the World Series. While in St. Louis, their crosstown counterparts were looking to do the same against the Cardinals.
They pretty much hadn't done anything against us the whole year, so we figured playoffs, we can win.
And led by 2 hits and an RBI from Mike Piazza, the Mets took the opener at Busch Stadium.
The monster's out of the cave! Let's go! The monster's out of the cave!
And one night later, Cardinals fans tried not to fear the worst when their rookie phenom took to the mound in Game 2.
Rick Ankiel making his first appearances when he threw those 5 wild pitches.
The first batter was Timo Perez, and the first pitch was, right at him, right at his head.
Right back where he left off.
That's a wild pitch, and Ankiel is up to his old tricks again.
And this is borderline ridiculous.
Cannot get out of the first inning, and that's a shame.
And this time, the Cards couldn't cover him and fell behind further in the series.
Strike 3. The Mets go home to Shea Stadium in New York, leading 2-0.
The team split the next 2 games at Shea, which meant the Mets could wrap it up at home with a win in Game 5.
The Mets bat around in the first inning and score 3 runs. And now Hampton will try and protect the lead.
Getting 3 runs, you can breathe a little bit, but it's the playoffs. Every pitch counts.
Cardinals have not been able to score a run against him in 2 postseason starts.
Of any game in my career, I was the most locked into that game.
3-hit shutout for Mike Hampton. The New York Mets are the National League champions.
And now the enticing possibility lingered that they'd be taking part in the first Subway Series in nearly half a century.
So the Yankees survived this 5-game tense battle with the Oakland A's. They get to go back home and open up against the Seattle Mariners.
Welcome to Game 1 of the League Championship Series.
The affair began on hallowed ground at Yankee Stadium, but the Mariners were hardly intimidated.
It was just so exciting. We felt like we were as good, if not a better team than the Yankees. And we went out there and we actually played pretty well.
Not in time. Seattle's in front, and Seattle will take Game 1.
It was really big to steal one there because obviously they were the favorites. They were supposed to, just run through everybody.
Following Freddie Garcia's Game 1 shutdown, the Yankees were being blanked through 7 innings in Game 2, until finally in the 8th, they broke out.
Base hit. The Yankees finally score, and they tie it.
And once again, they were in control of this series.
The Yankees take a 2-1 lead.
That is good.
That's really the first time in that series that we had some momentum.
A 7-1 lead.
I don't care how good a hitter you are, team-wise or individually, you can go through little stints where you don't hit the ball for a few days. And if you do that in the playoffs, you lose.
After starting the series with 16 scoreless innings, the Yankees would take 3 straight, capped off by a Clemens masterpiece in Seattle.
Roger Clemens' postseason record was spotty going into the 2000 season.
Strike 3, down looking.
He entered this series still with something to prove.
Clemens is struck out the side.
Roger was basically telling everybody that night, it's going to be my game, and I'm going to dominate.
1 hit and 15 strikeouts.
The Mariners just had no chance.
Ball game over, Yankees win.
But then they lose Game 5 and have to take it back to New York to wrap things up.
And back in the Bronx, another comeback would be needed to propel the Yankees into a Subway Series matchup. Trailing by 1 in the 7th, their prized midseason acquisition came to the plate.
As soon as I hit it, I knew I got him.
This one is on its way. This one is gone.
And it was just pandemonium after that.
And the Yankees have come all the way back. They lead 6-4.
I couldn't believe it because the furthest thing from my mind was a home run, but it happened that night.
What a big home run for David Justice.
The Yankees' bats were now fully awake, and they were able to win the game and the series and therefore set in motion the first Yankees-Mets Subway World Series.
Start spreading the news. New York, New York.
Get your tokens ready. You might be boarding the subway.
It's what every New Yorker kind of dreams about. You know, having grown up a Yankee fan and a Met fan, it's kind of like my dream comes true.
I'm a Yankee fan since birth. I'm a Yankee fan since birth.
I don't care where you went to, Central Park, you can go down Broadway, you can go down anywhere. People were talking baseball.
I live in Manhattan. Every time I set foot out of my apartment, you're hearing the Yankee fans telling you better not lose. Basically, just take those 3 rings and throw them out the window. This is one that matters.
I've never seen more people in Manhattan wearing Yankees and Mets hats.
The papers, they were just blasted with everything about it.
Subway Series.
I came home and I told my wife, I don't want to see a paper, I don't want to see TV on nothing, because it gets your mind turning so much that you kind of forget what you're doing there.
The whole city was caught up in this bubble on baseball only, and it hadn't happened in 40-some years.
It took 44 years, but the Subway Series is back.
They'll be talking about this 40 years from now, and we're here now.
Next stop, Game 1.
This series opener would be anything but disappointing. After Andy Pettit and Al Leiter traded zeros for 5 innings, the intrigue intensified in this 6th.
Todd Zeile connects on that ball, and off the bat, you're saying that's gone. Home run.
Swing and a drive, deep left field, back toward the corner.
But somehow it hits the top of the wall, stays in the park.
Off the top of the wall.
And Timo Perez, who, you know, has great wheels, is going to score on the ball easy, thought it was out.
It's in play. Perez rounding third, racing home. Jeter's relay through the plate, the slide, and he's out at the plate.
Timo Perez was there because of his legs.
Perez out at the plate.
For him not to be running at full bore, that's unforgivable.
He thought it was out, and then he accelerated, but too late, and he got thrown out at the plate.
And that cost the Mets the lead.
Believe me, single runs like that in the course of a World Series game becomes very big.
Especially when Armando Benitez couldn't hold a 1-run lead for the Mets in the 9th.
And it's a 3-3 game in the 9th.
All of a sudden you have that feeling that we're going to steal this game.
And in the 12th, the Yanks did just that.
Swung on line drive, base hit to left field, and the Yankees win the game.
We're stealing the game from them game 1. I don't know if they recovered from that, to tell you the truth.
Yankees win game 1.
What a ball game.
And now you hear the roar of the crowd.
It was Game 2 of the Subway Series, and all the focus was on the rematch between Roger Clemens and Mike Piazza.
So Mike Piazza steps to the plate, the crowd goes nuts, everyone's completely into it, it's like a boxing match, and all of a sudden...
Broken bat, foul ball off the right side, and the barrel of the bat came out to Clemens, and he picks it up and throws it back.
In the dugout, we all looked at each other like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, this cannot happen again.
We have a bench-clearing situation in the World Series. You don't see that very often. Then again, you don't see a pitcher throwing a bat at a batter very often.
Clemens throws a pointed, sharp piece of wood 2 feet away from Mike Piazza.
After the game, he told reporters that he thought the bat was a ball.
He may have run right into that barrel of the bat.
I don't know what Clemens had in mind.
When the dust settled, Piazza would be retired on a ground out, and Clemens escaped the inning otherwise unscathed. And by the 9th, the Yanks had built a 6-0 lead. But then the Mets and their slugging catcher suddenly awakened.
A 6-2 game as Piazza clangs the pole and left. And now, after having to work 2 full innings last night, Mariano Rivera will enter here in the 9th inning.
But it's out of here! Jay Payton with a 3-run homer!
Anytime Mo gives up runs, you're stunned.
The Mets with 5 runs home in the 9th inning.
But that was as close as the Mets would get, as Rivera settled down to shut the door and give the Yankees a 2-0 series lead.
Game over. Yankees win the first 2 games of the 2000 World Series.
I mean, we did get into their bullpen, and we scored some runs against some good pitchers, Jeff Nelson and Mariano Rivera, who hasn't been scored on in 3 years. So for us to come out and score some runs in a late inning, maybe it'd give us a little momentum.
Momentum the Mets and their fans hoped would carry over back to Shea Stadium in Queens for Game 3.
Mets in 7. We got to take it tonight or tomorrow night.
Mets in 7, baby.
7.
Mets in 7.
No doubt about it.
Next stop, Game 3.
It was the first World Series game in Flushing in 14 years.
Howdy and welcome to Shea Stadium in New York as the Mets play Game 3 of the 2000 World Series.
And the Mets battled all night long, taking the lead for good in the 8th.
He's got a base hit into the game.
And snapping the Yankees' 14-game World Series win streak en route.
And the Mets win it 4-2 and get back into the series.
You've just lost Game 3. The Mets feel like they're back in the series. The fans are ready to tie this thing up.
It's the Yankees 2-1 over the Mets. Game 4 tomorrow night.
And here you are, first inning of Bobby Jones. Derek Jeter hits a home run.
And he goes after the first pitch way back. Goodbye, home run. First pitch homer for Derek Jeter.
Before you know it, here we were in Game 4 with a lead already.
And on the first pitch of the game, the Yankees take a 1-0 lead.
When you make a pitch that is in his zone, he just does damage on it. And his damage was really felt by us this series.
Not that it gave us the game, but it took away immediately what had happened in Game 3.
Strike three called. The Yankees have won it, and they lead in the series 3-1.
3-1 is a lot better than 2-2.
They're 1 win away.
You look at those 4 games, any one of the 4 could have gone to either team. It was so close, and it was probably the most intense first 4 games of the World Series I've ever been in.
Next stop, Game 5.
Well, here they are again, the world champion Yankees, 1 win away from their 3rd consecutive world title.
It was a matchup of veteran lefties, Andy Pettitte for the Yanks and Al Leiter for the Mets. The home team grabbed an early lead before another Jeter homer tied it. And then in the 9th, the Yanks came up with a big hit yet again.
Base hit. Here comes Posada. Throw to the plate. Hits the runner. And the Yankees lead 4-2.
2 runs, it's almost a sealed deal with Mariano out there. They have a couple guys who've got power. You know Piazza's going to somehow make it to the plate again.
It has to come down to this.
So now it's 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, runner on base, and the entire Mets season comes down to Mike Piazza, their stud.
What a dramatic ending.
These are the at-bats that people make stories out of.
The best relief pitcher in the history of baseball.
2 of the players at the top of the game facing each other.
And the best hitting catcher in the history of baseball.
When Mike hit that ball to center field,
I said, oh no.
I thought it was a home run.
I just dropped, and then I looked over.
For a second, we thought that Bernie was just watching it go over the fence, and then missed it.
Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Yeah, everyone had wondered what it was going to be like if the Mets ever played the Yankees in the World Series, and it was a great experience. It's something I definitely will never forget.
it's so hard to get to the World Series, and it's also hard for having both teams in the same town to get in at the same time. Who knows, it may not ever happen again.
It was probably my favorite World Series, but when you talk about teams that won 3 consecutive World Series, it puts you in a class that a lot of people haven't been in.
The next year, in the wake of the 9/11 tragedy, the Yankees would make one more magical run to the World Series, but their dynasty would end in crushing fashion in Game 7 of the Fall Classic against Arizona. The Mets would decline quickly and not return to the postseason again until 2006. Rick Ankiel would never be the same pitcher again and would ultimately decide to restart his career as an outfielder. Improbably, he succeeded, returning to St. Louis in 2007 and then coming up big for the Braves in the 2010 postseason. In baseball, if you wait long enough, some stories do work out the way you dream them up.